So like Lightning's pretty new, and you read a lot of things online, talk to a lot of people in person, and people hear about Lightning Network, they get excited. They hear about you can collect fees over the Lightning Network for routing, and they think they're gonna be like swimming like Scrooge McDuck in that jiff of money, and I just don't think that's gonna be the case. The South Park meme is you come up with some idea, in this case it's the Lightning Network, then something happens in between and then you're rich. I take a little bit more of a nuanced approach to that, and I think what actual applications can we build on Lightning that makes this system more collectively valued, kind of like Bitcoin itself. I think what I want to talk about today is thinking about new monetization models that Lightning enables. What can we do with Lightning that we couldn't really do before? And let's focus on that stuff. So Rusty Russell, who is a contributor to C Lightning, has a really great TED Talk up on YouTube somewhere where he talks about his experiences with the Linux community back in the late 90s and mid 2000s, and then how it parallels to how Bitcoin development's going today. And he talks about how it was always going to be the year of the Linux desktop from 1995 to 2010, and it never really happened. But in the meantime, Linux ended up taking over the cloud computing environment. Almost everything's being run on Linux up in those environments, and that's something you just couldn't have imagined when you were talking about the internet in 1995. And I think the Lightning Network's going to take a similar path, and hopefully I'm going to tell you guys a little bit how I think of these things and where I think interesting business models are that didn't really exist before. So at SureBits, we're really interested in monetization strategies for APIs. I think most people know what APIs are here, but for those that may not know, it stands for Application Programming Interface. It's a common strategy that computers use to communicate with other computers and share information back and forth. Since we didn't really have digital cash, when computers were created in the 1990s or when the internet was popularized in the 1990s, it was very hard to do this on a small scale, and we actually ended up reverting to the traditional payment system that was created in the 60s to do commerce over the internet. And a lot of early adopters of the internet are kind of remorseful about this and wish we would have had digital cash to be able to do more interesting things back then. And then Bitcoin was created in 2008, and we thought Bitcoin would be a way to solve this too, but it turns out, if I could go back to my blockchain sucks slide, Bitcoin actually isn't the greatest way to do it, at least directly on the blockchain. You need a faster way to settle, or not a faster way to settle, a faster way to exchange value, and allows for you to have a little bit more of a liquid balance system. So now thinking about Lightning with APIs, the very dead simple, obvious thing that I think almost everybody should be doing today is rate limiting with APIs. So let's say your company has a policy, it's if someone tries to send us more than 5 requests in 1 second, you may throttle them or ban their IP or have some strategy like this. I think that's stupid. You should send back to them a Lightning Network invoice that's just hey, you're using our service a lot. If you want to keep using our service on that frequent of amount, that often, start paying for it. So you have this now filtering mechanism for people that really want to use your API that frequently. They can pay for that service. Maybe they want to call it 10 times a second, 100 times a second, whatever the time frame is. You give them that option to make the payment for it and use your service. You don't want to be turning them away at the door. You just want to be saying, we see you find our product valuable, so if you want to continue using it, please pay us for it. And then what we're working on here at SureBits is pay-per-call APIs. So Blockstream published a blog post about this probably 9 months ago, and the idea isn't exactly new. A company called 21 had something similar to this way back in the day. And the basic idea is you want a piece of information, we're going to charge you Bitcoin for that piece of information. So what we offer at SureBits right now is sporting data. So as a live sporting event is going on, you can query our API and get scores, statistics, player rosters, etc. about the ongoing game. So you can like implement something like a ticker functionality at the top of ESPN.com. It's actually surprisingly hard to get access to this data. It's something we've come across people with building shirt bits, how they've been just priced out of this market. It's 4 figures to get access to this kind of data in a traditional market. And that's just a lot more than what an average indie developer can afford to even start tinkering with stuff. So with building pay-per-call APIs, you have a really strong incentive to provide good client-side libraries so people can actually pay you. And the exchange of information goes something like this. And I will show you a little demo of it here. Hopefully this goes smoothly. Okay, so what we have here is just a little tab on my web browser that connects into a WebSocket very easily. What I'm doing here is opening up a WebSocket connection to our API and asking for information about ongoing NFL games as we speak. So for the non-Americans, the NFL is a very popular American sports league. They play games on Sundays. There's constant events being generated in real life, and we need a way to get those events that happen in the physical world into the digital world. So what we're doing at SureBits is offering a way for developers to hook into these APIs without like paying that 4 figures I just mentioned before upfront. So you build this request here, which I kind of built beforehand. You send the request over, and then you see down at the bottom here, we get a Lightning Network invoice returned. So your program would copy this Lightning Network invoice, which I'm going to do out of band here, and then pay it over the terminal. So what this command does here is it calls out to my player node that's running on my machine and will pay this Lightning Network invoice. That's the information that's returned by Claire when a Lightning Network invoice is successfully paid. And now if we go back to this console here, we will see this information returned down at the bottom that has it scrolls off quite a ways to the side, but there's a bunch of information about the current ongoing games in the NFL. So what this does for developers, it provides them an open API that anyone, anywhere in the world that owns Bitcoin can call and get information about an event that's actually happening in the real world. So that's one example of a pay-per-call API. We also have an NBA version of this. So NBA stands for National Basketball Association. If you guys have ever heard of like LeBron James before, or various NBA stars, you can query information about what their ongoing games or what's happening in their ongoing games with queries that look like this. This is an example of the games that happen today. I believe there might be a few of them going on right now, but I'm not 100% sure. But so this is an example of just this simple request. We send a Lightning Network invoice back. You pay the Lightning Network invoice, and we give you data in return. And you can do that over and over and over again for whatever event that you want to be watching in real life that's happening. Okay, so I just talked about pay-per-call APIs, and another monetization strategy here is using WebSockets to do this. WebSockets are a little different in the fact that traditionally you send a subscription message up front and then somebody just starts streaming data as fast as they can at you. A traditional example of this is exchanges usually have WebSockets. So you subscribe to trades happening on the exchange, and then the exchange just starts sending trades at you, and you're like bombarded with this data. So when you integrate Lightning into WebSockets, you can do things like pay 10 Satoshis for 10 seconds of data from the WebSocket. And you can start like breaking down these huge data sets into smaller increments that you're actually interested about. There's some very interesting not really court cases, but disputes going on between traditional financial exchanges like the New York Stock Exchange and traditional brokerages like, say, TD Ameritrade about monopolistic behavior about these exchanges' data, because like of weird regulations in the United States, exchanges basically have a monopoly on their data, and everybody has to purchase that data. And I think there's a really interesting application here with Lightning or something similar to it about kind of breaking that monopoly. But so Lightning allows for you to easily refill subscriptions. So say in my example above where I'm paying 10 Satoshis for 10 seconds of data, and then you get halfway through that 10 seconds and you're like, whoa, an interesting event just happened on the exchange that I want to keep streaming information because of. You can easily refill your subscription and extend that to, say, 30 seconds. So you're monitoring the next 30 seconds from the WebSocket, or maybe you want to go even further to like 5 minutes or something. It allows for easy cancellation. So let's say after 5 seconds of data from the WebSocket, you're like, okay, I'm done. Like everything's boring from here. The event happened that I wanted to monitor. So please refund me the rest of my subscription. The Lightning Network is a bi-directional payment network, so it allows you to easily do things like refunds from the WebSocket, so you can get your money back if you didn't consume all that data. So yeah, and then like the last bullet point I have here is sort of interesting incentive programs that this offers. Like finance in general, there's just sometimes like non-obvious things that people do that's very good for growing like your customer base. The prototypical example of this is back when PayPal was created in the early 2000s. One thing that PayPal did was give $10 to every customer that joined their platform. Actually, it was $10 for every new customer and then another $10 for the person that referred them. And like this sounds stupid on its face because like you're giving away money to all these people, and like giving away money is not a scalable business model. But what they found is you have these perverse incentives with like money involved where there's like these really strong network effects that develop. So it turns out that actually giving away 20 bucks every time like someone refers somebody to sign up for PayPal was actually a very effective strategy in the long term. So when you're doing like WebSocket subscriptions in the Lightning Network, there may make sense to have times that you're paying people to actually use your WebSocket, or you're paying people to use your data. What I'm really trying to get at here is I think there's probably just things that I hadn't thought of, or just the wider community hasn't thought of, that maybe make compelling business models, or at least make short-term sense to have like different incentive programs that you can do with the Lightning Network that really haven't been tapped before. So, and like again, what I'm just trying to really hammer home here is like there's a lot of flexibility that comes in with the Lightning Network, and then just these various APIs, and you can do a whole lot of stuff. And like this is really a frontier that hasn't been explored, in my opinion, and we're really excited about fleshing out some of these ideas in short bits. So what I'm going to do here is another demo. Copy this stuff. Oh, jeez. And show you what it exactly will look like to maybe subscribe to 10 seconds of WebSocket data from an exchange that has an open API. So the exchange we're going to connect to here is Bitfinex, one of the biggest crypto exchanges. They have APIs that you can query and get information about what's happening on Bitfinex. So what this is saying in this request here is like the most important thing is the symbol that we're getting information about is BTC USD. So we're getting information about the Bitcoin USD order book. The duration is we want 10,000 milliseconds or 10 seconds of data from the exchange. If we wanted to cancel our subscription halfway through, we need to provide a refund invoice for them to send the data back to. And that's pretty much the relevant information. So we're going to close, reopen, and we are going to send this. Okay, so we get our invoice back. We're going to go back over to our Claire instance, pay this invoice. And now look, we have this data streaming directly from Bitfinex. We're going to get 10 seconds of this data, and that's our entire subscription. So we ended up with this event unsubscribed down here. So like part of what we're doing at SureBits is kind of building the infrastructure behind the scenes to like make this stuff happen. Again, like if you want to get access to traditional financial market data, like it's extremely expensive and like you need to have like a serious system behind you. In my opinion, as the traditional financial infrastructure kind of fleshes out their crypto businesses, like what happens in those markets may end up dwarfing what happens in like crypto markets that we're used to. And I'm hoping that these exchanges will adopt something like this to allow crypto people insights into what's happening on those markets. So it'd be very hard for you to get access to what is happening on the Chicago Mercantile or CME exchanges market right now, their Bitcoin futures contract. That book is growing pretty fast and it seems to be kind of gaining steam or popularity in more traditional financial circles. And like the crypto space is just totally in the dark about that stuff because we can't access that data. With technology like this again lets anybody with the Lightning Network or Bitcoin like hook directly into this infrastructure and figure out what's happening, seeing like what orders are placed or what trades are placed, and gives us a little bit more transparency to what's happening in markets like this. So yeah, like moving forward with SureBits, we are trying to provide people with more access to these like data sets. Let's see if I can go back to this. Yeah, more access to interesting data sets is what we really want to start giving crypto people insights into. So like I said, we have NFL information right now, NBA live information right now, and we want to keep broadening the different APIs we offer. We want to get into like Lightning protocol development specifically, obviously with things that affect our business, but like Lightning's really small right now, and we need to be part of the solution in getting this stuff more refined so average people can adopt this stuff, not crypto nerds like us. So education for data providers, like when we go talk to data providers, you know, they don't even know what Lightning Network is. We're their first kind of intro into this stuff, and we show them how the technology works, but there's still just a lot of things that need to happen there. Fleshing out more API monetization models, and then modularizing our infrastructure so other companies can leverage it. There's a lot of like interesting tech that's happening here behind the scenes, and you know, we work in a very security conscious space, rightfully so. Like making sure we don't lose money on Lightning Network is very important. Lightning Network is basically a hot wallet all the time. So thinking about best practices for security around Lightning infrastructure is something that I think a lot of people are going to be working on in the next coming months. And yeah, I think I'll stop there. I have some more Claire stuff, but I'm kind of out of time. So thanks. Like follow me on Twitter, follow SureBits on Twitter, and yeah. So.
Have you guys ever looked at streaming on Bloomberg data?
Yeah, I mean, like, so getting access to this data is not trivial. Yeah, we would love to, but like getting access to this data is not trivial. There's a lot of like licensing stuff that has to happen behind the scenes. So we're very interested in it. If you have people to connect us with, we're definitely willing to talk.
Has there been any work, either by you or other folks, to explore? And I'm sure there's been a bunch of like web standards work on payments on the web and how we can integrate them. We really haven't had a good platform for it. Has there been any work to like standardize the whole cycle of like requests, payment request response using something like the payment request HTTP code or something like that?
I don't have a good answer for you there. I know like if Christian Decker probably has I think he participates in, what is it, like W3C or whatever conventions, standards body or whatever it is. Like for us, like we're just trying to keep it simple where we give you an invoice that's pretty easy to parse in JSON and you can pay that. Like I think a lot of the complexity is setting up a Lightning Network node and then waiting for it to sync, and all that stuff is where you lose people, and not necessarily, if they make it to the part of like seeing an invoice and a JSON request, like that's the easy part in my opinion. But I guess to answer your question, not that I'm aware of, but you should talk to Christian Decker about that.
Can you try to repeat questions?
Oh yeah. So he asked about like standards around like Lightning Network invoices and like how we should handle those in like a standardized way. And like I said, I don't really know a whole lot about that, and I know other people working on it though. So yeah. Any other questions? Good to go. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys.